And we had our mic check, so the mics are on. Everything is all good. So that being said, what up, though? Welcome to 17 Winners Podcast. I am your brother Mike X, and of course, I am here with another episode. I always do this. It's getting old, but I call every episode like a special episode.
Nice.
I explain it as it's a special episode, usually because I'm having a conversation with somebody that I was inside with.
Right.
That I like directly walk the yard with, and now we're walking the big yard, the real big yard, right? So I call those episodes special just because of like that reality.
Yeah.
But I call this episode is a different level of special because one, we are at the FAMM conference, the Families Against Mandatory Minimums. Their conference 2025 is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is the Second Chances Working Group. So we are here collaborating with people from all across the country who are all doing some level of work on second chances and second look legislation in their particular city, legislative branch, legislative area, or what have you. But I'm also having the opportunity to meet other formerly incarcerated leaders all around the country and having some really cool conversations about the work they're doing and some of the real shit that we're going through in order to get these things done. So that being said, my guest today is Kyle Hedquist.
Yeah.
Okay, I said it right.
You said it right.
My man, I learned the brother's name while we were talking, and I was like, man, I got to practice that if I'm gonna like try to introduce him. But Kyle works for the Oregon Justice Resource Center out of Oregon, which, to be honest, I think I told you this when we first met. You're my only person that I know from Oregon. So that's cool.
That's very cool.
So that being said, I know I kind of told them your name already,
right,
and your organization, but I want you to give a brief introduction of yourself.
Sure.
I can't do it as well as you. So just like your name, organization, a little bit about the organization, and what brought you to the conference.
Sure, yeah. Like he said, my name's Kyle Hedquist. I am formerly incarcerated, and I work for an organization called the Oregon Justice Resource Center, located in Portland, Oregon. We are a nonprofit law firm comprised of about 60 attorneys and probably 10 to 12 formerly incarcerated staff that work on different projects. I am on the policy advocacy team with 3 other formerly incarcerated individuals, and we advocate at the state legislature, draft bills, fight bad bills, support our alliances on good bills. And like I said earlier, I'm formerly incarcerated, and I did most of my time at the Oregon State Penitentiary. When I first went to prison in 1994, I was at a smaller prison, Oregon State Correctional Institution, because I was too young to go to the state penitentiary.
Hold on, stop there, because that's one of the things. So you're new to the podcast, but one of the things that I do on a normal episode is I like to ask you, first and foremost, do you remember your prison number?
Of course.
Okay, you don't have to spit it if you don't want to, but I always ask that because for me, that thing was like branded. It became my name for real for 15 years of my life.
Yep.
To the extent where like I'd be using it as codes for shit. Like,
right.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
So you do remember your prison number. You say where you did your time. How old were you when you went? You
so
too young.
I was in high school. It was the beginning of my senior year, 1994, and I got caught up in an armed robbery that ultimately resulted in murder. And so my prison number, 1123-0424, and that was how I was identified for 28 years. Just a
28 years.
28 years. I was actually sentenced to life without parole. I fought the death penalty for 18 months in the county jail.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They got the death penalty in Oregon still?
I
didn't know they had it in Oregon.
They've done some revision lately. A couple years ago, they revised who was eligible for the death penalty. And so if I had committed my crime, within the last couple of years, death penalty wouldn't have been on the table. But in 1994, it was the war on juveniles. It was the war on, young criminals.
They called it super predator.
Super predator was there. Yeah. Yes, sir. That was the same year that our mandatory minimum called Measure 11 was on the ballot, and it passed. Still on the books. Still fighting to get those mandatory minimums changed, reversed, undone. which is an uphill battle for anyone who lives in a system with mandatory minimums.
Man, for sure.
And so I fought the death penalty, ultimately received life without parole. And then in 2022, the outgoing governor, Governor Kate Brown, was looking at individuals that either were juveniles or first-time offenders who, in her words, had no remedy for release. And I fit in that category, and I began working with an attorney for about a year. Of course, no guarantees. We didn't know what the governor was actually going to decide on.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to receive clemency in April of 2022. And by August, I was hired to start working on policy.
Okay, stop there, because you said that you were able to get a clemency, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that relationship, like, she was the governor was just looking? How did they just found you? Or
yeah, it was actually a wild story. So my cellmate at the time was in prison for felony murder, and for those of you that don't know what felony murder is, it basically means you can go to prison for murder having never killed anyone.
Yeah.
My cellmate was in prison for felony murder. His little brother, who was actually 15 at the time, had committed murder, and he did not tell on him.
And they gave him felony murder.
They gave him felony murder, which in Oregon is a 300-month minimum time, and so mandatory minimum 300 months, 25 years.
Yeah.
And so he actually was granted clemency because of changes to felony murder.
Okay.
When he got out, he told his attorney, "You got to go meet Kyle. You've got to hear his story. He's been in prison. He's been doing all this good stuff, and we think that, you know, he would be a good candidate."
Yeah.
And so he advocated for me with his attorney. His attorney came in and met me. I really wasn't even thinking about clemency. I was an advocate inside. I was working with my club members. I was Lifers Club president, and I was working with community partners.
So we got National Lifers Association. Is that do they connect, or
they don't connect?
Okay.
But in Oregon, as president of the club, I was inviting advocacy groups from all over the state. Basically, anybody that would come in, I was more than happy to invite in and talk about their organization and how we could connect and help.
Okay.
And so she came in, she talked to me, she started working on my case, putting paperwork together, reaching out to organizations that I had worked with while incarcerated, and put together a packet for the governor's attorneys to review. She had a team of 3 attorneys that were reviewing all of these juvenile cases and 18-year-old, 19-year-old cases. Most of us that were getting looked at easily had 20 years in. Most had probably 25. I had 28. There was a few that had a little bit more, closer to 30. And again, the governor was evaluating what we had accomplished since we'd been in, you know, evaluating our disciplinary record, you know, what were we involved with? Did we take programs if they were available, which very few were available,
right?
And so, again, you know, I got a call. I was literally at work, and it was not unheard of for me to get calls while at work, you know, for club projects. Like, hey, you know, we got this event coming up. So I get a call, ladies on the phone.
Mind you, we're in a joint still.
Yeah, we are in the prison.
Okay.
So I'm in the staff office on a staff phone, and staff with a staff member standing there who does not know what's going on. And I say, yeah, what's up? And they say, hey, how would you like to go home?
What?
And I said, okay.
Was that the question?
That was the question.
Okay.
And I thought it was just somebody playing a prank because people knew that I had filed. So I thought, okay, somebody's trying to rib me. And I played a lot of practical jokes inside, which got me in trouble in other ways. But so I thought, okay, who is this? Who is this? And I go, and the person on the other end of the line said, it's Kate Brown, the governor of Oregon. And I was like, yeah, right.
Right.
You know, like, you're calling me at the state penitentiary at work.
That you're letting me out?
And she said, I am calling
you. Wait a minute. The governor?
The governor, Kate Brown.
Called you?
Called me.
That is.
Called the prison.
That's hard.
Yeah. And so the crazy part of the story is she goes, I'm releasing you in 20 days. You're not going to see the parole board or anything. And I said, okay. And she goes, aren't you excited? Well, this was right before Easter. And I said, Well, she had me scheduled to get out Monday after Easter. And I said, well, yeah, that's great. I'm super excited. It would just be really cool to take my grandmother to Easter service.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, in order to do that, I have to change all this paperwork to get you out on Friday. So you're out for Sunday. And I said, no, don't worry about it. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm good. She goes, nope. She goes, I'll change it all. And so she actually changed me to 17 days. And so I had about a week to like talk with folks, get all my affairs in order, all the club projects that I had on my agenda. I had multiple meetings with prisoners on the yard, in the club office, in the chapel, trying to make sure the projects I was working on stayed active.
Alive. Yeah.
And I went home 17 days later.
And that's where the conversation goes a little bit off track for me.
Right.
That's why I said when I gave you the run of show, it's like kind of. Right. Because I'm more interested now in your transition. You say she granted you clemency in 2022. Mm-hmm. This is only 2025. I've been here 10 years. Right. I kind of figured this shit out, how to weather these storms, and I'm still running in the walls. So
I hear it.
Talk to me about like the immediate transition, that like first 24 hours and that first couple of weeks, and then talk to me like about where you are now.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to have a lot of community support and a lot of family support, and so I had over 100 people come to my release. Imperative. It was incredible and so necessary. And so for the first couple days, I spent with my immediate family. My brother flew out from Virginia. I met his daughter for the first time ever, and she was like 17. Yeah. She knew about me, but we had never met. And so it was really cool just to spend like 2 or 3 days, just all of us together. I visited some of my high school teachers, just people in my life that had been in my life when I got into trouble. And it was just really remarkable. But I knew from doing advocacy work inside that I already had inroads and connections to advocacy. And I wasn't afraid of challenging the status quo. I wasn't afraid of raising my hand and being the one to stand up and say, I don't think this is right. I'd been doing that for, not my whole time. It took me a few years to settle in and figure out what I was going to do. But quickly I became an advocate for others and trying to improve my community. I mean, I'm going to live and die in this place. Then that's what I'm going to do. I became a hospice volunteer for over 20 years and sat with, aging men that were terminally ill and dying. And that was one of the key factors the governor referenced, that for over 22 years, I had sat with dying prisoners, taking care of them in their final moments. And that made a huge
another level of like I don't even have a better word than mind fuck, right? Like a mind fuck, because you're in here doing life.
Yep.
You're watching people that did life,
knowing that I am going to be in their position, which made me a better advocate. Damn. Because I wanted a good death. I wanted to have some continuity in my life, because I felt like I came to prison at so young. Yeah. And so learning how to navigate the system, and then learning how to advocate and speak for myself and for others, and then coming into that kind of caregiver role, which was the last 22 years of my sentence. Yeah. Really solidified who I was as a person. And so shortly after that, again, got out on April 15th. By August, I was hired by Oregon Justice Resource Center. They were putting together a policy team. They invited me to be a part of that team, and I said, yes, I want to talk about prison. I want to talk about solitary confinement. I want to talk about death and dying. I want to talk about the the discrepancies and the cruelty, and I wasn't afraid to say those things publicly on public record at the legislature, and that's what they were looking for. And what I've discovered since I've now been out about 3 years is that a lot of folks that get out, both male and female, that get out, they are desperate to put that behind them, and I don't fault them for that. Mm-hmm. But what it does is it means there's just there's fewer of us speaking up. Yeah. And that just galvanized what I want to do. And so for 3 years, I've done a couple long sessions and a short session. It's just the way our legislature works. And I've spoke against bad bills. I've supported good bills. We've gained some things. We've lost some things. That process just is a rubber band effect when it comes to changing laws in probably any state. And so that's what I do. In addition to that, I also sit on two or three boards with the city of Salem, where I live. I'm on the Police Accountability Review Board. I'm on the Traffic Commission, and I'm also on the aging population. They call it 50 plus. And so I'm able to give input to city officials and work in community, which sometimes is accepted, and sometimes people kind of like, they give a nod or a wink or something, and that's fine. I weather it.
Well, I actually want to talk to you a little bit about your leadership.
Okay.
I, like yourself, recognize that a lot of people who get out of there want to put that thing behind them and move forward with their lives. And like you said, not only do I appreciate it, but I think I hold them to a high standard, in the sense that, like somebody just said inside that plenary session, that people are not necessarily trying to be the talented 10th, so to speak, trying to be the outstanding star. I may be a star, you may be a star, right? We may be leaders in this thing, right? But the people that are just going to work every day, being regular citizens after being impacted, I think they hold so much value to the movement, because they represent what the real big picture is. And that is like regular community.
Hundreds of people get out of prison every month. Thousands nationally, maybe even tens of thousands. And many of them go back to their communities, go back to their families, their fathers, their mothers, their brothers, their sisters. They're working, and nobody ever hears about them. They're never going to be in the news. They're
advocates.
Past. They had this prison experience, and they're past it. And they're contributing to society, and that segment of population is huge. Huge.
And because we can't identify them individually, it's hard for us to build our power with them. Right.
But the fact remains is, for the most part, many of the people that I was incarcerated with, they want nothing more than to just be normal people. They just want to be free. They want a job. They want to take care of their kids and grandkids. That's all they want. And obviously many of them are sorry, remorseful. They would change the circumstances in a moment, in a millisecond, if they could. But they can't. So none of us can change our past. All we can do is say, I did that, take responsibility, and then move forward. And sometimes that's not enough for hardliners, right? I mean, people want that additional layer of punishment. They want that scarlet letter. It's almost like they want a tattoo on your forehead that says, I committed a crime in my life. And if we did that, I think 2/3 of America would have a tattoo on their head.
If we're just saying, I committed a crime in my life, not found guilty, but I committed a crime.
Exactly.
I don't know how many people would be free of letters, right? But I brought that up to speak to your leadership, because here in Michigan, when I entered organized advocacy, I recognized two things: the stars and the tokens. And what you talked about in that segment was how you were willing to speak, and how you immediately started speaking, right? But your role wasn't just in speaking, or was it? Let me slow it down. Walking into rooms, formerly incarcerated individuals in a lot of these spaces are expected to come in the room, sit down, and be quiet until we need you to get up front and tell us the trauma porn that you've gone through. So that we can get funding or attention or whatever we're doing. And then go sit your ass back in that corner and don't do anything. Don't fidget or nothing, right?
I'm like a bull in the china shop.
And that's what I'm saying.
I come in, I bump into things.
That's not the case. So how did you get to, I guess, be able to, the freedom to know that you could do such?
Well, for one, I was supported by our executive director, Bobin Singh. And, he's a bit of a rebel himself, and he values, he's going to hold true to his values, the values that Oregon Justice Center has, and those values include real advocacy, not tokenism. And the fact is like when you do walk into spaces, now when I first got out, because I was in the news and because I was in the paper, a lot of people, kind of said, oh, that's Kyle, that's Kyle, that's Kyle. Well, now it may be 50-50. Half the people might know who I am, but the other half has no clue. And I like to do the subtle, I don't have any visible tattoos. I do have some prison tattoos, but they're under my shirt. And so I don't walk the yard walk. I don't talk the con talk. I simply come in and have conversations about criminal justice reform and being smart on justice. And people sometimes think like I work for the DOC. People have thought that I was a police officer.
Wow.
Just by the way I carry myself, because I don't give off any of those like convict vibes. And we've both seen it,
So I was just about to ask about that, because you said it, and I'm not sure if I can agree with that.
Right.
So this is my thing. I don't think we look like nothing.
Right.
Like when you've been to the joint,
right.
Unless you also have been, you can't tell.
No.
But if you have been,
right,
I think you can tell.
You can
because
tell,
like all
to a
of us,
degree, yeah.
when I'm walking around,
Right.
it's like,
right,
bro got something about him.
right.
I don't know what the fuck it is, but his ass done touched the yard.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw that in you.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. Like
right.
I didn't.
There was no.
I kind of would have assumed the same
right.
things too, right?
Right.
But like something about you said, no, you've been in the yard before.
I'm in the fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But that's a thing that like you said, inside guys can recognize that. Inside recognizes inside. But when you walk into a room and you're having normal conversations about prison reform, sometimes with lawmakers, sometimes with community leaders, you can actually bring up kind of these touchy issues and they don't even know your history. And then all of a sudden, an hour into it, they find out. Right. And they're like, well, whoa. And it challenges what they think a convict is supposed to act like. Because people that live in fear, people that vote for mandatory minimum sentencing, people that vote for death penalties, people that vote for these, life without, for these forever sentences, they're just scared.
That's it.
And so if I come in, burly chest, tattooed out, convict code, they're just going to be scared.
That's real.
I'm going to reinforce their fear. What I want to do is I want to be their friend. And I want to have a conversation about prison and what the expectations are. And then after I have that conversation, say, you know what? I've had people ask me to say, well, why is this important to you?
Why do you care? Yeah.
Why do you care?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I was formerly incarcerated. I start light. I was in prison for murder. No, I was formerly incarcerated. Oh, wow. Well, what happened? Oh, I did an armed robbery. Oh, what was that? Whoa. And then I said, and somebody died. And it's like, whoa. Mm-hmm. And it's a real moment now. And they have to grapple with what they thought I was and what now they think of me. And sometimes that shifts. And sometimes they're like, oh man, this is something. Like something's happening. Like I'm challenging their worldview because they don't feel scared.
That's real.
They don't.
I mean, that's why I come in this form a lot of times. Like, I have a lot of my formerly incarcerated colleagues who be like, man, I stand in my dignity. I come how I come, right? And I respect it because on one hand, they expect you to come in and look corporate like them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's not who I am. Right. So I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Whether it's code switching or I call it collateral, what is it? Cultural collateral. I learned that term from a sociology class I took inside.
I like that.
So I consider it to just be that, cultural collateral. I know what is valuable in what setting.
Exactly.
I know in this setting, when I approach you, you'll be a lot more likely to listen to me if I'm dressed in a suit.
Exactly.
Versus if I pull up on you.
And when I'm at the Capitol, I'm in a suit and tie. I mean, it's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is.
people that don't know who I am, most of the legislators know who I am because I've been working there since I got out.
Right.
But other people, advocates, other, law enforcement, whoever is speaking on the day, they don't necessarily know who I am. And so I look just like another lobbyist or another advocate, or, I get asked like, oh, what are you here for? And they got a smile on their face. Oh, I'm doing criminal justice reform. And they're like, oh, okay. And I say, I work for a law firm. Oh, are you a lawyer? It's like they really want me to be that something, right? What they think is correct and right. They don't expect me to come back and say, I spent 28 years in prison, I fought the death penalty, and here I am fighting for the brothers and sisters I left behind.
Man.
They're just not expecting that.
Right.
And I love that. I mean, that energizes me. And sometimes in my mind, I know it's going to happen at some point, right? Like I just keep talking my talk and doing my thing until somebody else realizes like, oh, wait a second, he did time.
Yeah.
The other thing I do is I testify at parole board hearings for people I did time with. And, some of my own mentors that mentored me when I was a teenager are still incarcerated, and so I'm attending their parole board hearings. I work with the homeless during winter. I do shelter work for the city. And so I go around and go to these homeless camps and ask if anybody wants to go to the warming shelter. Like,
it seems like when we come home, we be doing every damn thing.
Oh yeah. And for me, I feel a connection to, so leaving prison, I lost community. For
sure.
Because I had to create community.
Talk about it.
So whether you're on the yard, whether you're playing sports, whether you're playing cards, workout buddies, whatever, you create community or you're going to go insane.
Yep.
And so that immediately was stripped from me.
Yeah.
I had no more community.
Yeah.
And the community that I
was like, man, I ain't got nobody to walk the yard with out here.
And when I paroled, the community wasn't, the community wasn't like, oh yeah, we're playing cards on Wednesday and Thursday we're going to church and Friday we're going to do this, because in prison everything is structured.
Right here.
But outside it's not. They're doing their own thing in their own lane. And I had to figure out, well, where's my people at?
Where's my lane?
Where's my lane? Where's my community? And guess what? I saw brothers that I knew in prison on the streets. I saw them battling addiction. I saw them battling houselessness. I saw them having mental episodes. And I was like, wait a second, my people are here.
My people are here.
They're getting brushed off to the side. They're over there in the brush and trees in the corner of the park getting harassed by
Talk a little bit about that, how people, especially I think in the Black community, the myth is that, oh man, they get out the penitentiary and they be way more on point than people who never went.
Right.
Have you heard that?
I've heard that, yeah.
Speak to that a little bit, how like you have been able to kind of stay on your course, but the people that you know.
Right. I feel like the people that I did time with that were organized, that were advocates, that were trying to move in a positive direction, when they parole, you see them working with organizations, nonprofits, homeless, being a counseling, addiction counseling, because that's what they were started in prison. And so that's their people, that's their community. The people that just did time, walked the yard, worked out, maybe got a job, didn't really care about programming or education, those are a lot of that group probably constitutes the majority of recidivism.
Yes, for sure.
Because the group that I'm in,
we ain't the ones.
It's less than 1%. The group that they're in is closer to 40%.
Yeah,
and so it really says a lot about how you do your time. And in the Oregon system, and this is true throughout the nation, there's very, very few programs, very few educational opportunities. Most lifers aren't even eligible. So when they have a new opportunity announcement, it's usually 10 years or less, 5 years or less, 15 years or less. None of us are eligible.
Are never eligible.
So we had to create it ourselves. We had to figure out how to advocate and speak for ourselves. And we did. And because we were forced to do that, we had to choose to do it.
Yeah.
But in a way, it was the only way we could survive.
It was the only way.
And so we actually ended up, in a way, rehabilitating ourselves.
Oh, not just in a way, 100% we do it.
Not because of DOC, but in spite of DOC.
I stand on that flag. We do it ourselves. There's nothing that is done by the DOC of any state.
So when I got out, speaking of tokenism, there were the DOC executive level, so the executive director of Department of Corrections and all the administrators supported me. They wrote letters to the governor for my release. Some of them thought that I would be a great example of the Department of Corrections. Look at this kid who now is so successful, he's out. What they didn't realize is that I was going to be true to my community and my advocacy. And I got out, and immediately, the very first hearing I went to was on solitary confinement, and I called out the Department of Corrections by name and said, you're not using, they were using pictures that were not the whole, they were using pictures of honor housing and saying that was DSU. And it was totally egregious. And I was like, this is totally unacceptable. Blatant lies. And that kind of like drew a line in the sand that I was not going to be the token champion. I did everything right. DOC, pat me on the back. No, I'm out. I earned it. I had to work with it with my fellow prisoners, not administrators. Sure. You know, other lifers mentored me, not prison counselors.
That's real.
They wouldn't see me because I had too much time.
That's real.
You don't see your counselor unless you have less than 5 years.
Oh God, yeah.
So all of us lifers, we were counseling each other. We were having conversations with college professors. We were writing articles. We were creating our own rehabilitation.
So part of that, I have run into a challenge when it comes. So here in Michigan, I'm working on developing a formerly incarcerated caucus. All formerly incarcerated individuals to center our issues. But what I have run into as a challenge is a lot of us who did that type of leadership inside and don't realize that we still need training.
Right.
Because I have been leading and I've got out here and I'm leading and I'm the executive director and it's hard to then approach them and say, hey bro, you might need some C-suite training.
Exactly.
You might need some executive training.
Communication is critical.
So
you have to learn the legalese. You have to learn the language of politics. You have to learn the language of policy.
For sure.
And while I had worked and advocated, I immediately enrolled in college when I got out, finished my bachelor's and finished my AA first and then immediately finished my bachelor's. So in 3 years, I got a 4-year degree, and all of my classes, sociology, political science, all about policy. And so I knew that I had to educate myself, and I just leaned into it. I went full-time student and full-time worker.
Now this
and I just graduated.
Off the wall question, right? Because I heard that from a couple of my peers that they came home and went straight running to getting a degree, and I ain't gonna lie, y'all boys are like stars to me, right? What the fuck did you do about pussy? And I say that like it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of a reality, because
there's a reality.
In my mind, when I left the streets, I was an 18-year-old boy. I hadn't paid bills. I was in my mom's basement. I didn't even understand like dates and shit.
I didn't
So
either.
I came home, in my first 3 years, I didn't try to do any advocacy. I didn't try to do anything but learn how to be an adult in the street, right? So but that was only like a full-time job, a little college. I didn't get a degree. I went and got a certificate.
Yeah,
But
that's
just
great.
you know what I'm saying?
Training is training.
Training is training.
School.
But I was like taking baby steps in my mind because I wanted to become an adult first.
So I was fortunate. I'd never had kids. I never really had relationships, when I was in school. I just came to prison too early and whatever. And so I get out, and one of my plans originally was to rent space in a friend of a friend house.
Okay.
And I had written her a few times, and she was going to Willamette University, working on her MBA. And she goes, look, my roommate just moved out. I've heard a lot of good things about you. She was connected to CURE, Oregon CURE, so it was an advocacy group. And she goes, I'm happy to help. She's very helpful. She's from New York. And that parole plan got denied because we had never met in person. And so the parole, not the parole board, but the county parole and probation said, well, you guys have never met. We're not going to take that risk. So I paroled somewhere else. Well, when I get out, the members of CURE said, hey, you guys need to hang out. Let's go shopping. Yeah. And of course, I got out. I had nothing. I had a shorts and a t-shirt.
Damn.
and flip-flops. That's what I was paroled in. And I had no clothes. And so the only people I knew were my advocate friends.
Wow.
And so they went and took me shopping, and and it was all fun, right? We went to the movies, we saw all kinds of cool stuff. And about 6 months later, and I had no idea. I was so paranoid about meeting a girl, right? Am I going to have kids? I mean, I had no idea. I didn't even know how to talk about it. In all reality, it just scared me. It was the elephant in the room that I certainly wasn't acknowledging.
Right.
So about 6 months into my release, the friend that I was trying to learn and convince, the parole officer that I could go, rent her second story bedroom. She approached me one day and she goes, "Look," she goes, "I don't think we can be friends anymore." And I was hurt. I was like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, No. She goes, I think we should date. And I was like, for a minute I was just silent.
Was just
I'm
platonic,
like,
right?
Date? Like, what? Why would I date you? I really wasn't even thinking about what those words mean. Like, I'm trying to live my life. I'm trying to go to school. I'm trying to figure out my money. Like, I'm not looking to date.
Right.
And she goes, "I think we should date." I said, "Well, okay." Like, I didn't even know what to do. Like, we had already gone to the movies. We'd already gone shopping.
Right.
I said, "Well, you want to go to the movies?
How do I date you?"
I'm like, "You want to go to the movies?" I'm like, it was so weird. And I was super awkward. So we went out, went to the movies and stuff. And then, and she kissed me. And I was just frozen. I mean, I didn't know what to do, because when you're in prison, I had been in prison for 28 years. I'm doing life without. So I really kind of didn't think about
when you left.
I didn't think about, I'm going to get out and get married. I'm going to start a family. I never even thought about it. Like, it was not a thought. And so I was like, okay. And I was super shy. And so I was honest. I was like, "Look, I don't know nothing. Like, if you want to date me, like, it's all you. It's all you."
Until I get my bearings.
I didn't want to offend her. I didn't want to disrespect her. I didn't want to do anything wrong.
Grabbing her ass seems out of control.
Oh yeah, I was hyper paranoid. I had an ankle bracelet on. I mean, I was like, I don't even know what to do.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And so, long story short, by December she asked me to marry her.
For real?
So I got out in April and was married by December.
My man.
So
my man. Hey, I ain't mad at that at all, bro. I ain't mad at that at all.
She was 2 years old when I went to prison.
For real?
For real.
Damn, that's crazy.
And so,
actually, it's not as crazy because my fiance
yeah,
is about 9 years younger than me. So when I went to prison at 18, she was like 9.
Yeah, it's not. It's a little different when you get out and everybody's an adult.
Yeah, we all adults.
I do give her a hard time about it because we're 15 years difference.
Right.
But it worked out, and we love each other. We travel. We do whatever we want to do. We got 3 dogs, and it's fun, and we're just, we're living our best life.
Congratulations on that.
It's awesome.
You deserve to live.
Right. But I will say this: when I married her, I say that I married up. She had an MBA. She had a master's degree from Willamette University, private university. She went to St. Mary's, private university. She worked for Intel. She was a director of communications. And so she had a lot of those C-suite skills that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. She knew how to communicate on a level that I had never even heard of. Mm-hmm. And to this day, she creates plans, master plans. She has all that language and all those skills so that it benefits me moving forward with her. Right. And so you talked about C-suite skills, which I believe are 100% important. If you get out and you're talking like you're on the yard with your homeboys, people are not going to take you seriously.
No.
And so you have to be able to get out, not say the F word every other word, right? You just cannot do that. You're going to, even if you're saying 100% truth,
you still have to be able.
People will not accept it because you're not delivering it with any type of structure and order. And so whether you go to college, whether you hang around people that know what they're doing, however you get that language, even if you're just on the computer learning it yourself, you have to learn it. It's like you can't it's business speech, it's legal speech, it's policy speech. And so those learning curves I've been able to manage with her help, which has been immensely valuable. And so that's how I feel confident when I'm at the Capitol. You know, I'm dressed appropriately, I speak appropriately, and I'm not afraid to challenge the status quo. And right now the status quo is punishment, punishment, punishment. We need to build more prisons. We need to deport people. We need to incarcerate youth. And I don't agree with any of it.
Man, great segue. So what are you working on right now?
So we are working on a number of issues, one being solitary confinement, which used to be unlimited. You could
unlimited?
You could literally be sentenced, you could spend 25 years in solitary confinement based on your behavior and whoever's interpreting that. So you're in the hole and you throw your food tray at the officer, that's another 90 days.
Damn.
Yeah, and they were just handing that stuff out. And literally people were losing their minds. I would see people come back after 3 years, which became the minimum for a long time in the Oregon prison system. Literally people would go to what they called IMU, Intensive Management Unit, which was the hole, lights on 24/7. It was absolute torture. They would come out and they could, first of all, they were super pasty white. Brothers come out looking white.
No, for real.
It was like, dang, bro.
Yeah.
Like they have not had sunshine for 3 years.
Yeah.
All they've had is fluorescent tubes.
Yeah.
They come out, they're shell shocked, and they literally can barely function. They can't play sports. They're walking. They're stumbling.
Have you ever heard any of them use or seen them say shit like, "Man, I'm about ready to go back to the hole"?
Every time. Every time. Without hesitation, those guys, as soon as they run into conflict, they put hands on somebody and they go right back to IMU.
Yep.
So we worked hard on that and finally got the Department of Corrections to maximize, the maximum number of days was 90. So you could do another 90, but you have to be released. You have to get another infraction before you can do another max 90. What we want to do is work on the Mandela rule, which is 15 days maximum.
Okay.
And get out. If you're causing problems, you go back for another 15 days because psychologically, mentally, 15 days is plenty of time for someone to cool down,
think about
to reassess their values, to look at their behavior, and DOC needs to be held accountable to that. Because if someone is doing 3 years in prison, it's not just a failure on them, it's a failure on the system.
Yeah.
And they're perpetuating violence through that extended duration of hold time. And so that's one of them. The other one is basic conditions. So we have a couple very old prisons built in the 1800s, and they don't have air conditioning. The heating is shoddy at best. And so you're super cold in the winter and super hot in the summer. And so we're trying to address some of those issues. We have an aging population like many other states. We don't have ADA compliant facilities. Besides, we have 2 newer facilities, but all of our other facilities, besides the 1800s, they were built in the 1930s, 1940s. So people didn't accommodate wheelchairs. They're multi-floor. Nothing's on one level. And if you're in a wheelchair, which sadly more and more of our prison population is wheelchair bound or walker bound, so we're looking at mechanisms to either release them through medical compassionate release, or if they're terminally ill, to release them to die on the streets with their families.
With some level of dignity, right?
With some level of dignity. And some of the other issues we're working on is some of our Women's Justice Initiative, which is looking at things like, just the way that, I'll say it like this. For the most part, women prisoners are treated just like male prisoners.
Yeah.
And so there's a harshness. There is, that we wear the same clothes and they don't fit right. So the women look like they're just, the pants are not fitting right. The shirts don't fit right. Everything's like super tight or super loose. It doesn't look right. There's no dignity. The tone that's taken with the female prisons by security staff is the exact same tone that they're talking to 25-year-old man. And so they're challenging, they're confrontational, and women are not responding well to that, and they're having increased mental health issues because of it. They're many times they are victims of domestic violence, And so when a male figure in authority yells at them or criticizes them, even for like having their shirt untucked, they melt
It's
down.
automatically
They're trauma. They're right back into trauma.
A friend that's a colleague
They're
of mine,
over
same like
medicated
that.
because as soon as they have a trauma outburst,
Take
they're
the meds.
immediately given additional medications. This goes on for years, and it's literally making people zombies. It's making people sick. I knew an individual, a male, that had an accident inside, and he injured his head, and so they started him on some mental health pills, and over the course of about 10 years, he just became a walking skeleton. He did not communicate. He stopped communicating. He did not talk. He did not say any words. I get released, and I see this guy at an event, but he doesn't look. He looks completely normal. And I went over to him. His name's Mike, and I said, "Mike," I said, "What has happened?" Spoke clear as day. He says, "I finally was able to stop taking those pills they were giving me." Damn. And so this was the Department of Corrections incapacitating an individual through medication. As soon as he was released, he stopped taking his medication, and he literally was restored to health. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked, and it only reinforced the idea that we over-medicate, we are locking people down, and we are not treating conditions. We are simply separating people and locking them down.
Yeah.
And that's not the goal. That should not be the goal of any corrections. Corrections in itself, the name corrections implies rehabilitation and treatment. What they should call it is just isolation, if that's what you want to do.
You're gonna do.
Separation and isolation department, because that's all that they're good at.
That's real. That's real. I'm about to bring it to an end, but as we get close to the end of this episode, I have a couple of questions that deal with narrative change and education. So the first one is kind of a question for us and the kind of a question for like the big picture.
Right.
But what are they/we getting wrong when it comes to narrative?
That's a deep question. I think what we're getting wrong is that when I was inside, I thought, and many others thought, that it was us against them. That there was a them, and we were fighting against them. What I've realized being out is that there are advocates, there are legislators that want to see changes, there's judges that want to see changes. And so we have to make that shift inside the prison system. We can't, and you see it happening in pockets. We heard it today. People able to organize themselves, people writing letters, people writing op-ed. Those are healthy things to do inside because you're giving yourself a voice, you're sharing your experiences. And that's the narrative that we need to push throughout the nation. Instead of this, it's us and we can be violent, and then they are gonna respond with more violence. And getting out of that culture of violence on violence, and including the violence that we do to ourselves, the separation, the racism that still exists.
Yes, sir.
And so
would it be called sexism?
I think sexism. I think so.
Because inside of organized advocacy, I've run into recognizing trans people, homosexual people, recognizing women's issues. Because mind you, I did my 17 years in a men's facility.
Right.
I didn't even acknowledge women's issues, right? So like those things coming to the forefront also.
Yeah. When I advocate at the Capitol, I advocate a lot for changes at the women's prison, and sometimes legislators ask me, well, why are you doing this? And I said, because it's still prison.
It's still prison.
Like there's this idea that when we think of prison, we think of a hardcore, typically male, mostly black individual. That is societal's view of who is locked up, a young black male.
Yeah.
And we have to change that narrative to say, there are brothers, there are sisters, there are moms, there are dads. And if we can change that, starting from the inside, we have to choose to change that about ourselves. If I go into prison and become racist. How do I stop doing that the day I get out? If I live my life like that, judging and violence, and it's not going to make my release easy, and it certainly isn't going to make me an advocate if I become a hate a group, a hate monger myself.
Yeah.
And so that starts inside, and then we change that narrative when we get out. And just like when I go to these places and people have no idea that I was incarcerated, that's a way to change the narrative, because I can insert all these questions about prison and criminal justice, and then they find out, oh, wait a second, he was incarcerated. Oh my goodness, maybe I'm thinking about it wrong.
That's real.
Because if he was incarcerated, what does that say about me and what I think about?
That's real. Who do we need to educate? And so you spoke a lot about your education, how educating yourself has helped you in your transition and your leadership and advocacy and all of that. Who do we need to educate, and how do you think we go about that?
So first and foremost, with the reinstatement of the Pell Grants, every prisoner should have the opportunity to use their Pell Grant funding to get educated themselves. There are different studies, different states have different numbers. I think in Oregon, they say that the average education level is around 8th grade. Other states have their own statistics. But we know through statistics that the more education you have, the less likely you are to return to prison. And even like a bachelor or master's degree is almost 0% recidivism. And if you have a PhD, it's nothing. I mean, you will not come back to prison. We know this for a fact. We have Pell Grants available. Those Pell Grants need to be available in every prison to every prisoner, first and foremost. Secondly, most of the public that doesn't have a loved one incarcerated has no idea the reality of our current prison system. So we need to educate the public. And thirdly, we need to educate lawmakers, because many lawmakers do not actually know what is happening in the prison. They get their information from the sheriff, from the district attorney, from a tough on crime judge, from statistics that show, in some cases, crime statistics from other states are being applied to other states. And so to paint a picture that we are more violent than ever, when we know that crime rates, especially for violent crimes, it does go up and down, but we're kind of in a downward slump. But the narrative that you hear at the Capitol is that run for the hills because violence is on the rise. But the crime reports don't say that. I know in the city that I live in, Salem, Oregon's capital, I listened to a report from the city police chief who reported every crime category was down in the city of Salem. Every single crime category, major, minor, does not matter. Every crime category is down. Over the last 3 years, we're on a downward slump. But if you read the paper or hear from tough on crime advocates, you wouldn't believe that, because they fail to mention that. And so we need to educate our legislators. We need to educate the community so that they can elect better district attorneys and better sheriffs that align more with their values. And we need to educate the population inside. If you got 10 years to do, there's no reason you can't come out with a degree.
Sitting around, right?
You should not be sitting in there. You should be getting rehabilitation. Education's free.
That's real.
Education is free.
So for my final thought, I'd like to give away some game.
Okay.
Well, acronym GAME, I actually stole it from $1 million worth of game. It's Gilly and Wallow's podcast. I'm not sure if you hit with my guy.
All right.
But GAME, guidance, attention, motivation, and education.
Okay.
So as a final thought, got any game you want to give away?
That is a really, really good question. I would say that I'll speak on for those that are getting released. Find your community. If you want to work, you want to be a family man, good for you. But find community, because that community is going to allow you to share your feelings, and it's going to allow you to, get stuff off your chest. And if you get out and you're running solo and something bad happens, who are you going to go to?
That's real.
And sadly, people that come from a violent history, they usually resort to violence because that's what they're most familiar with.
That's
So the
real.
game is find your community.
I respect that, brother, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit with me on this podcast.
Yeah.
At this event.
Yeah.
That being said, man, I appreciate y'all for tapping in. Y'all know, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do. Y'all know how this social media and stuff works. I don't. Appreciate y'all. Free to real.
Awesome.
Yes, that was dope. That was dope. And now let me get a picture of it. Of course. I'm gonna set it up like a scene. Get this out of the way. We gonna sit down. We gonna stay seated. Okay. Put the tripod up over here. Yeah. Come across. That's what this Apple Watch is for.
Mm-hmm. I know. I left and I got on the plane and I realized, because usually on the plane I use my watch to
The airplane
flip through my
one?
thing.
Oh yeah.
And to flip through my pause and I went down. I'm like,
No watch. I love it too.
yeah.
Mainly because it's like the Jetsons when I was in prison. I was like, yeah, this is
Exactly.
high tech shit. Matter of fact, where the bathroom?
All right. Sure. What do you think, bro? That's weird. It should work. Oh well. We'll take the flick, we'll go back upstairs, use those bathrooms. Hey, you want this in the, you want this little second chance thing?